Hello, friends. Welcome back. I know I'm coming in at the last possible second to deliver these UFC Fight Night picks, UFC Fight Night Seattle picks, but hey, we're here. I also want to make a mention. I've been peeping other MMA pick channels, specifically one of the bigger ones. Been posting a lot of last minute UFC picks. I started that wave unintentionally, but I did start it. Either way, that's the end of the intro. We're about to hop straight into it with a spooky bout. I think this card is going to be fucking fire. Modestas Bukauskas, starting off the card. Modestas Bukauskas, the Baltic Gladiator versus Rafael Sequeira. Now, if you were thinking about picking Rafael Sequeira, don't. Just fucking don't. Stop right now. Modestas, despite being maybe not the best, maybe not even reaching his full potential, what people thought was his full potential, should win this fight, in my opinion. I actually think he might even pick up a finish here, a KO TKO. Modestas Bukauskas, to me, at least, meets the standard. You know, what is that? That might even be tough to say on its own. Like, what the fuck is the UFC standard? But whatever it is, I like to think that Modestas Bukauskas meets it. You know, if you're winning against a dude like Marcin Prachnio and hurting him, you're doing something right. Even if you get caught by a close-range head kick. That was spooky. That was just some Marcin Prachnio shit. But either way, on the other hand, Rafael Cerqueira, even though we've only seen him once in the UFC, I was already concerned about his record when he was making his debut. Why? Because it's basically padded. And it kind of showed, actually, when he fought Ibo Aslan, and Ibo just ran through him. Man, Rafael barely fought back, pretty much just got violated. It was interesting to watch, actually. It's a combination of these things. One, I fuck with Modestas, low-key, a little emotionally as well, so I'm going to back him. But two, I think Rafael Cerqueira is a can crusher, and not even a very good one at that. So I'm going to go with Modestas Bukauskas, low-key with the round 2 KO TKO, or DQ, win. Moving on. I am looking forward to that fight, though. Nice starter, nice opener for the card. Moving on. Nursultan Roziboev versus Eric Mikonico. I like saying Mikonico, though. Makes him sound Japanese. Eric Mikonico. But all jokes aside, I'm going to have to go with Nursultan. I always say Nursultan Roziboev. I'm going to go with Nursultan because even though you want to talk about can crushers, Nursultan might be one of the biggest can crushers, both figuratively and literally. It does have to count, right? Like, that experience has to count for something. It doesn't count for nothing, you know? Dude has close to 50 fights. He's approaching 50 fights, 3 in the UFC, with a winning record in them, even though some of the wins were a little bit tweaky. I'm going to go with that. I'm just going to go with that. Eric Mikanuka has a way less experience, even if you try to make the argument that his experience is worth more. He's a little bit older than Nursultan, and he is smaller than Nursultan. He's just relatively too much of an unknown for me to pick against a dude like Nursultan. Even though Nursultan might not be good at all, I do think he will be better than Eric Mikonico, but hey, we might see a surprise. Moving on. Ricky Simón versus Javid Basharat. This is spooky, man. Ricky's on a bit of a skid. We can call it how it is. He's on a bit of a skid. Still very strong physically, still good physically, and he seems like he still should be problematic for people. What I mean by that is, I think that when you look at him, he still does kind of instill a little bit of faith in you, unless you've seen him fight recently. Then you remember that stuff, and it starts to play out a little different. I think Javid Basharat is going to win this fight, not by finish, but by a calm decision. Really just doing what he usually does. You know, a little bit less mileage on Javid Basharat. Very technically skilled, very fast. Ricky Simón still going to be explosive, still going to be strong. But I just don't know if it's... Like, that hasn't had success recently. I don't know if it's going to have success now. I think the most likely outcome is simply Javid Basharat winning by decision, calmly. Moving on to what is a bit of a spooky bout. Nick Klein versus Mansour Abdul Malik. You got to go with Mansour Abdul Malik here, I think. You could pick Nick Klein and just have some fun with it. And this is no disrespect to Nick Klein. It's just everything is pointing at Mansour winning this fight and Loki winning this fight by finish one. Nick Klein is being brought into the UFC as a short notice replacement. That's already spooky hours, even though Mansour has only had one fight in the UFC. And has had they have the same amount of fights in general, professional fights, that is. But I think this is just way rushed for Nick Klein, and Mansour is a big-ass dude. Nick Klein is not a small guy himself, but Mansour is low-key huge. This isn't like a crazy sacrifice, but I think like Nick Klein's best option here, his most probable outcome of like victory, or the game plan for victory really, would be to somehow finish Mansour Abdulmalik either right away or somehow win by decision. I just don't see that happening. I can see Mansour Abdulmalik overwhelming Nick Klein in like the first or second round instead of Nick Klein surviving. Even though it might happen, honestly, crazier shit has happened in the past couple of weeks either way, especially on the prelims. So we'll have to see. Mansour Abdulmalik is the pick here. If I had to say something, I'll say by round 1 KO TKO. Just keep it simple. Moving on to fucking real spooky hours, man. Probably the spookiest hours on the card. Andre Touchy-Feely versus Melkazel Costa. Holy shit, man. I've went back and forth on this fight. Ultimately, I'm going to settle and ride with the boy Andre Touchy-Feely. It's scary, though, man. There's a couple things going against Andre that I don't like. There's a couple things that actually I think go against Melkazel that other people prescribe it as a strength, as a positive to Melkazel. For example, Melkazel's diversity of techniques, specifically striking techniques. Dude likes to throw some unorthodox technique, a lot of spinning techniques, spinning shit. We've seen it backfire on him, though. We've seen dudes capitalize on that shit and then put Melkazel away. That's what I fuck with, though. Melkazel, I don't think, is as good as people jacked that he initially was. One, I called him getting smoked by Steve Garcia when he was a big favorite in that fight. Not a huge favorite, but he was a favorite in that fight to smoke Steve Garcia. He got clapped. He got ass clapped. The fight against Shailen Nurdimbeki, which was his last fight, made me very sad. I picked Shailen to win, and Shailen actually was fucking winning that fight until he gassed, until it was just over. Melkazel came back, got the finish. Did he get a finish? I think he got the finish. I think he tapped him. But that wasn't like the best performance. That wasn't like, oh, that was valid, Melt Coffee. Like, not really. I think that he's lost a bit more stock than other people might think he has, personally, just with Melt Coffee. Andre Fili, on the other hand, I've actually, even though he's gone back and forth wins and losses as of late, still good. There's still something about Andre Fili's style that I think actually will do very well against Melkazel Costa. If Andre Fili can kind of go first, pressure Melkazel. If Andre Fili sets the tone, that's what I'm trying to say. If Andre Fili sets the tone here, I think he wins this fight by decision, actually. Maybe he even cracks Melt Coffee the same way he did Lucas Almeida. They're just both in the pocket. Big hooks. Drops him. Melkazel can get dropped. Melkazel can get hurt. This dude's not like invulnerable. Invincible. That's the word I was looking for. Invincible. Cue the title card. But it might just be me having a soft spot for Andre Fili. Andre Fili is getting a little long in the tooth here, especially for a lower weight class. It's just spooky hours. More mileage on this dude, Andre Fili, But I'm willing to take another chance. I'm willing to take one more chance on Andre Fili, getting this one done by decision. If it doesn't happen by decision, this is even spookier too. I low-key, for some reason, think that Melt Coffee possibly wins by finish. Low-key by submission, possibly. But Andre Fili is also decently well-rounded himself. So I think Andre Fili is a competent fighter who is more so getting better than he is getting worse as he gets older. So, however, Melt Coffee, if we just look at performances recently, that might not be the case. And that some people might say that's crazy to say, but that's what I think. Moving on. Oh, damn, actually. And this is where I remembered I actually made a mistake here. And this should have been the third fight that I called out, but it's not. Austin Vanderford versus Nikolai Veretennikov. Nikolai Veretennikov is the pick here. I'll tell you why. Austin Vanderford is one taking this fight on. Not last minute, but like a shorter notice replacement fight for him. Nikolai, though, I actually fuck with the losses of Nikolai Veretennikov. Even though I've picked against him in the past, specifically with Danny Left-Handed God Barlow. What I want to say about that, though, is Nikolai has fought dudes and lost to dudes, specifically on the Contender Series, actually, who haven't fully proven themselves, but they've proven themselves as, like, prospects or valid Contender Series graduates. Two of these dudes being Michael Morales and, I just said his name, Danny Left-Handed God Barlow. Those dudes are good. They are very skilled. Not only are they good dudes, technically, they're dangerous dudes. They can actually finish people. And Nikolai went the distance with the both of them. He lost, but he did go the distance. He's a little older himself as well. Austin Vanderford, on the other hand, decently well-rounded, a little younger, a little bit better of a record, and actually had a successful Bellator run, from my understanding, if I remember correctly. But I like the style of Nikolai. I like the dudes that he's fought recently. And I think the UFC, this is also really important, I think the UFC wants Nikolai Veretennikov to win. I've said this before in a previous video, I don't remember which one, but when you see a dude or a woman losing fights on the Contender Series and they get more Contender Series fights, or they get brought up to the UFC and it was a close loss, these were like close loss, competitive losses, the UFC wants them. They actively want them to do well in the UFC. They see something in them. They're going to make a little investment in them. And so I say all that to say this. I think Nikolai is going to win. And if it's a close fight, I do think he'll get a little nod in that sense. That's actually a very interesting fight. Looking forward to that one. Moving on. And like I said, even though in the linear order of fights, that was not the order. I've listed this as the 6th fight, even though I believe it was the 3rd fight listed on the card. On Tapology, I should say. They always change that shit up. But, moving on. I digress. Ion Cutelaba versus Ibo Aslan. Man. This is like a coin toss to me, honestly. I feel like, at first I was like, damn, Ion Cutelaba low-key might catch a young, low-key, reckless dude like Ibo Aslan slipping crazy and put him away. On the other hand, Ion Cutelaba is unpredictable in one of the worst senses of the word. And he could literally get caught somehow by a reckless Ibo Aslan and get put away. Maybe Ion Cutelaba has another big-brained, high fight IQ fight where he's like, oh shit, I should actually just grapple and take this dude down and lay and pray and win a fight. But maybe that doesn't happen. Ibo Aslan, on the other hand, what has he shown us? He's shown us some power. He's had a good start to his career at 2-0 in the UFC. 14-1 overall as a professional, and still very young at 28 years old. Honestly, I think Ibo is going to be the pick for me here, even though this fight, like I said, is kind of a coin flip. I think if someone rushes in to get the finish, who finds it first? Probably Ibo Aslan in this one. It's not impossible for Ion to get it, but does Ion get the chance? Does he get enough time to be able to work the grappling? Is there that much of a skill discrepancy between the two that Ion can just simply grapple Ibo Aslan? I don't know. I really don't know. I also think that Ion Cutelaba is deceptively young at 31 years old. I always think that he's way older, like 35, 36. But he's not. He's not. There's still some left, even though despite the losses and the mileage on him already, I think there is still some left. Ibo Aslan, though, obviously still has a lot to go. Ibo Aslan's going to be the pick there. Shit. And this might sound crazy. It's a very decisive, rounded method of victory to pick. But I'm going to say round 1 KO, TKO. I think there might be a couple spooky encounters, big collisions off rip. I think someone's going to press the action, and it in fact is going to get pressed. Moving on. Alonzo Menifield versus Julius Walker. Julius Juicebox Walker. I like that nickname a lot. Unfortunately, this is a major step up in competition against a very dangerous dude that even if you look at his most recent fights and you're like, oh, dude's on a skid, he might even be on his way out of the UFC or just in fighting in general. It's a very fucking dangerous dude. That dude being Atomic Alonzo Menifield. He lives up to his name, bro. I say that because even in fights that he's losing, For example, the last fight that I picked him and he won, I think, actually, I might be mistaken on this, but it was against Dustin Jacoby, and that was, if you picked Alonzo Menifield in that fight, you know exactly what I'm talking about. That was fucking terrifying. Why? Dustin Jacoby was actually low-key dog-walking him, piecing him the fuck up. But Alonzo would just literally get in like 2 punches a round that were just devastating. You know, would rock or drop Dustin Jacoby, and it led to a finish eventually. But Dustin Jacoby was winning that fight dominantly, like 90% of it, pretty much. And I say all that to say this. Alonzo Menifield legitimately just needs 1 or 2 strikes a round to win a fight. Straight up. Like, Julius Walker has kind of ran through the dudes he's fought, but these are much lower level dudes. Like, Alonzo Menifield has been fighting good dudes. He's older, though, but he's been fighting dangerous dudes himself. You know, he's not new to this game the same way that Julius Walker is. Julius Walker, a very young guy, 25 years old, younger than me. A big guy at 6'4" with an 81-inch reach, but Alonzo is used to fighting those bigger guys. He's actually used to fighting and knocking out dudes bigger than fucking him, so with reach advantages on him. It's a bit of a toss-up here. I'm going to go with the experience and the power of Alonzo Menifield. If Julius Walker comes out, makes an insane debut, more power to him. Good for him. But I think Alonzo will get this one done. I'm going to say by round 2, KO. I'll say by round 2, KO, TKO, and here's why. I could see Julius Walker even kind of having his way or winning the first round just on a kind of more of a point fighting type of fight. But then in the second round, literally Alonzo Menifield in just like a hectic exchange fucking catches Julius Walker. Maybe Julius Walker's back is to the cage. He bounces into the cage, comes back, gets cracked by an atomic hook. Literally, that's it. That's over. That's kind of what happened to Dustin Jacoby, if I'm remembering it correctly. Dustin was like piecing him up. I think Dustin actually hurt Alonzo, and then Alonzo like literally fucking dropped him and like just followed up and finished him in the second or third round. But that was nutty in itself. Maybe it was even in the first. I don't know. But either way, that was a good fight, and that was a sad loss for Dustin Jacoby because, like I said, he did great. Dustin Jacoby isn't even fighting on this card, so we will keep the talk about him to a minimum. But I really say that in support of Alonzo Menifield, in support of his kind of the ability to literally, even though it's a bit of a cliche, to snatch victory from the jaws of defeat. Alonzo Menifield will be the pick here. Moving on to the featured fight. Oh, nope, never mind. Excuse me. Moving on. Gene Silva versus Melsik Bagdasaryan. Spooky hours, for real. Again, not as spooky. Excuse me. That's disgusting. Excuse me. Not as spooky as Andre Touchy-Fili versus... Jesus Christ, we just talked about it, Cole. I haven't even smoked yet. Not as bad... Oh my god, how can I not remember who Andre Fili just fought? I'm going to keep this in the video too. Versus Mel Coffey, of course. A very forgettable dude. I joke. I jest, Milk. I jest. Not as spooky as Andre Touchy-Fili versus Mel Coffey, but still very spooky in its own right. Gene Silva versus Melsik Bagdasaryan. Why? Because Melsik Bagdasaryan is like the not even... I would say Gene Silva is more of like the Nega Melsik Bagdasaryan. But I think this is like a very, very, very fucking close matchup. Might be deceptively like the hardest fight for Gene Silva yet, the biggest test for him. I could see Melsik Bagdasaryan edging out a decision here. I could see either dude in basically a 50-50 exchange coming out on top with a KO TKO as well. I think I'm a lean Gene Silva. However, despite all the things I just said, one of the reasons why he's one of the hottest fighters up right now. What do I mean by one of the hottest fighters? He's literally winning fights in spectacular fashion with massive momentum that maintains, that's been carried on through each win. And the dude is a character. He's made himself known to the fans. People know him. I do think that streak is going to continue. Fighting Nerds, the gym that the dude comes out of, he's actually a big, him and a couple of other dudes, him, Mauricio Hufi, fucking Cal Barajo. Those three, Might be a couple of other dudes that I'm leaving out, but they are a big reason for putting the Fighting Nerds gym on the map. One of the hottest gyms also currently right now in MMA. Fight teams out right now in MMA. Gene Silva's the pick. Moving on. I'm looking forward to that fight. Like I said, I think this card is going to be a fucking banger. Moving on. Rob Font, who should be renamed to the Prospect Killer, versus John Matsumoto. Now, I'm scared, man, because I'm going with John Matsumoto, but Rob Font, it's like I just said. Like, you want to talk about crafty vets, you want to talk about experience, it's Rob fucking Font, man. That's the thing. The odds, like, fighters like Rob Font, like, kind of, they rebuke the concept of odds, you know, like you got to be real careful with a dude like Rob Font, a dude who's very dangerous, very skilled, has a diverse set of skills, and especially in a matchup where it's an older veteran who's fought a lot of big names, come out on top against some of them, going up against a very young up-and-comer. Another young rising prospect, too. 2-0 in the UFC is John Matsumoto, and they were good fights. I will be very honest. I heard MMA Guru talking a lot of shit about this man, John Matsumoto's win over Brad Katona. I've told people, Brad Katona, I'm one of the biggest fucking Brad Katona haters. He is, like it or not, this is more so actually previous to his last fight versus John Matsumoto. But pre the John Matsumoto fight, he legitimately was, I'm talking about Brad Katona here, one of the most underrated fighters in the UFC. And that, if you think about what that means objectively, I believe that to be very fucking true. People count him out. People say he's dog shit. Not that he's mids. People weren't saying he's mids. People are like, he's actively dog shitty. But no, the dude can grapple. The dude can grind it out. He's tough. He has some cardio. He can win fights. You know? Like, people were hating on Brad Katona way more than they ever hated on Cody Gibson. Put that in perspective, right? And who won their fight? Who won their fight on Tough Finale? That was a reference to the fucking Thierry Henry. God, I forget that other dude's name. That other pundit. It's like, who scored against Juventus in that game? And my son Thierry Henry's like, who assisted in that game? Who had man of the match in that game? Just a great little reference, but either way. I digress. Moving on. John Matsumoto. Actually, I said moving on. I didn't even really make the pick, I believe. I'm going with John Matsumoto here to win this one by decision in a fucking close fight. I'm hoping that John Matsumoto can actually earn the relentless kind of attribute, if you get what I'm saying. I'm expecting to see real grind, real takedowns getting worked here. A little bit of striking to open up those takedowns from this guy, John Matsumoto. He's tough as hell. Unfortunately, I don't like when tough dudes fight dangerous strikers. People then still hold on to being tough or having a chin as like a positive attribute. I think that's a fucking negative attribute if you're fighting dudes who light people up. They're gonna hurt you. You're known for being able to take being lit up, right? These dudes are known for lighting people up. It's strange, man. I really don't like that aspect of it. It's a huge test, man, for John Matsumoto, and a decent test for Rob Font as well. See if you still got it against the young and up-and-comers, even though you just put one away. Yeah, poor choice of words there, because I do believe that was a decision for Rob Font. He didn't actually put him away, but you know what I mean. Still dangerous, goddamn. Like, saying all this shit makes me want to switch to Rob Font right now, but I'm going to go with John Matsumoto. Moving on. And that was the featured fight of the night. Rightfully so. Now on to a very hyped fight. Brendan All-In Allen versus Anthony Fluffy Hernandez, man. Fluffy, my boy. We share a birthday. Shout out big October 18th. October 18th, one of the best birthdays that you can have, if you ask me. I'm going with Anthony Hernandez. Why? The dude is he's lethal. That's one thing. I use that word specifically, lethal, because he finishes people, man. He finds finishes. He drags dudes into deep water. Fuck all the memes, fuck all the cliches. He actually does that, for real. Like, not only that, he rises to the occasion. This dude, Anthony Hernandez, I've yet to see him falter since early on in his career. Seriously, people were talking about Brendan Allen has always been kind of a dark horse. That's true. I'm not trying to say that's not true. That is very true. I think Anthony Hernandez, though, even though he's a little bit older than Brendan Allen, he's more like the new Brendan Allen, if you get what I'm saying with that. Like, Brendan Allen, good all around. Very competent grappler as well. Can get subs. He's gotten subs on dudes who are very competent grapplers themselves. Like a Kevin Holland. And that was when Kevin Holland was, like, serious. I also think Brendan Allen is, like, deceptively chinny, though. That's the thing. And Anthony Hernandez, his striking really works. It works for him. His striking works for him. That's aside from the grappling. That's on the, I'm talking about on the feet, kind of pushing a higher pace, maybe not the most powerful strikes, but volume, landing these strikes on the chin, on the face, working people. That's what we're talking about here. Anthony Hernandez is a very dangerous dude. Brendan Allen, also very dangerous. Another thing, I don't know, this might have all been a meme. I never looked at it in depth. I remember, I just knocked down my camera, so if the angle is completely off now, I apologize. I hope it doesn't make you sick. But where was I? Damn, where was I? Oh, yes, the rumors, the rumor mill. Let's go to the rumor mill, let's clock in. So, I want to say a couple months back, maybe it wasn't a couple months, but recently, somewhat recently, there was an encounter, apparently, with Brendan Allen and this man, Martin Vettori, who was also, who got into a digital encounter with this man, New Mansa, recently. Hilarious. I posted that shit to the UFC community. You can probably find it. Look up Appreciate It. Appreciate It. Appreciate It. Shout out Marvin Vettori. Appreciate it. But I digress. Apparently Marvin Vettori and Brendan Allen, they were at like the fucking Hard Rock Casino, like the Seminole Hard Rock or some shit in Miami. Or wherever. They were somewhere, right? I think in a casino. They run into each other, they exchange words, men start beefing. I think Brendan Allen swung on Martin Vettori, and Martin Vettori, like, dropped him, apparently, like, in the casino, like, straight up dropped him, and then they got separated, and then I think they fought again, actually. They had another little round, and that was caught on film, I think. But there was some footage of this shit, too. I remember seeing it. Why do I bring that up? If Martin Vettori is dropping you, I don't give a fuck if he's dropping you in, like, his dreams. Like, if he tells people, like, I had a dream that I dropped Brendan Allen. Like, nah, like, that's bad. That's not good. That's not good at all. I'm going to go with Anthony Hernandez. Granted, that's not the sole reason I'm going with Anthony Hernandez. I think Anthony Hernandez is such a dangerous guy. And Brendan Allen is also very dangerous, but leaves himself open a little bit more than Anthony Hernandez. Very impressive UFC record from both of these dudes, but more so Brendan Allen at 12-3 in the UFC, 24-6 as a professional. Very impressive record. 80% win rate at 30 wins is juicy. If I had to guess too, does this fight go to the ground? Probably, actually. So I'm going to say Anthony Hernandez by submission. We'll say round 3. Round 3. Even though Anthony Hernandez can low-key finish people at any time. I'm not going to say any time that he wants, but any round. He can find a finish. He does find finishes in later rounds, though, because of his conditioning and him dragging people in and fucking ground and pounding them for like a round and a half at that point. So I will say by submission. Maybe it will be by ground and pound, though, by KO, TKO. But I'm going to go with submission in round number 3 for Anthony Fluffy Hernandez. Moving on to the main event. Henry Triple C Cejudo versus Song the Kung Fu Kid Yadong. Now, there's a couple questions you could ask yourself here if you're thinking about backing Henry Cejudo. Like, for example, how much has Henry changed since his retirement? Physically, I'm talking about here. Has dude still been exercising, working out, training? The answer to that, probably. I'm sure that you can actually find the answer to that. Dude probably posts exercises and training on Instagram, YouTube, whatever the fuck. But that's not actually fighting. That's not actively fighting. You got to remember that. The accreditation, the accomplishments that Henry has are second to none, pretty much. Gold medal Olympian, UFC champion. He's proven himself. The thing is, he's approaching 40 now. Is that the end-all, be-all? No, it means a lot no matter what weight class you're fighting at, but especially at the lower weight classes, it means even more. Even more. Song Yadong also has a bit of a size advantage. Not a reach advantage, but a size advantage over Henry Cejudo, though they're both very explosive and strong, but if you have two dudes who are extremely explosive, and one of them is 38 years old and the other one is 27, and there's a little asterisk on that 27-year-old, that dude comes from China and he might be on the fucking crazy roids. Like, we don't know. We don't know. Like, who would you pick? Who would you pick? That's all I think you really have to ask yourself here. Could Henry Cejudo win via decision? Via even maybe ground and pound or sub? Pause. I don't think so. I think that the power, the momentum that Song Yadong has is going to be enough to carry him through this one. I do see him winning. I could see Song actually catching a finish here, even though I don't think this fight is expected to end in the distance. A lot of this is going to depend on how Henry Cejudo looks, I think, coming out of retirement. Might sound simple to say, it might be very plain, but I think that's really it. Reading my notes. I want to make sure I covered all my little bases with the last little part. That's really it. Like, I'm going with Song Yadong here. I'll say by decision, actually, because even though I could see a finish. Well, the finish that popped into my head is round 3 KO TKO for Song Yadong. Yadong Song for the Kung Fu Kid. But Henry is a fucking amazing fighter. Extremely skilled. 38 years old, though. Retired already. Song, he needs more. He wants more. He's still going. You know, I'm not really putting a lot into, like, the dedication, like who's more dedicated and stuff like that, but it's a lot more of a biological thing, like an age thing. Inactivity. It's really age and activity that I'm concerned about here. Both of these dudes are skilled. I don't think that either of these dudes are going to make massive improvements from their last fights. It's really about who's going to be in better form for this one. Who's more likely to be in better form, I think? Song Yadong. He's been fighting. He's been winning. On the other hand, Henry has probably not been taking any damage recently, you know? He's just been training. If he has been, just been working out. But I do think Song Yadong will get this one done. I kind of dragged out this last one, but that is the pick. I will recap them super quick, and then I'll let you go because the fights will start in a couple of hours. So going back, early prelim opener. Modestas Bukauskas, I'm going to say by round 2 KO TKO or DQ. Nursultan Ruziboev, I'm going to say also by round 2 KO TKO DQ because he's fighting a dude that maybe shouldn't be in the UFC yet. This is a very favorable matchup for Nursultan. Moving on, Nikolai Veretennikov. See, I want to say also by KO TKO / DQ because the dude can strike. He's fought some dangerous strikers himself, and he's going against someone who might try to grapple and get in off rip. But then, do you think that the first 3 fights are going to end in KO, TKO, DQ? Not impossible. I think it's unlikely. And actually, that brings me up to another point I'm going to go back to. Or, I'll get to it when we get back to that fight. But it's kind of about trends. I've mentioned this on the channel before. This is like real cracked out. Absolutely, what's the word I'm looking for here? Damn, I'm not even high. I haven't even smoked yet, but this is like conjecture. This is really conjecture. This is not laid. The foundations of this thought are not laid in facts. It's really just kind of like loose, like logic. I put logic in quotation marks. It's kind of logic and thought and reasoning that leads me to this conclusion about trends later on that I'll get to. But a little bit, the introduction to trends is like, do you think that the first 3 fights won by KO TKO? Straight up, like, probably not. So I don't know if there will be a third KO TKO. So I'm going to say Nikolai wins actually by decision. Fuck it. Moving on. Javid Basharat, we got him by decision. That's very calm. I don't think many will argue with that. Mansour Abdul Malik, I will say by round 1 KO TKO DQ because, again, no disrespect to Nick Klein. This is a bit of a sacrificial fight. Simple as. Moving on. Andre Fili, I'll say he wins that one by decision. Ibo Aslan, round 1 KO TKO DQ after a chaotic exchange, but that one could actually go the distance as well in a real spooky way where Ion Cutelaba just shows us he has a ground game. Don't forget that. Atomic Alonzo Menifield, I got by round 2 KO, TKO, DQ. Like I said, maybe even Julius Walker has his way in the first round. Maybe even hurts fucking Alonzo Menifield. But I think he might win the first round just on like a distance kind of point fighting game. And then Alonzo Menifield gets in, and or he just catches him straight up in the second round. Moving on. Gene Silva, man. Like I said, either guy could finish either guy here, and I hate when I start getting into stuff like that because, of course, that's like saying like, oh, either dude has either fighter has a chance to win any single fucking fight. Obviously, everyone knows this, but hopefully you can use your brain a little bit and you understand what I mean by that. What do I mean by that? Both of these dudes are very technical strikers. They're powerful. And they can finish people, so they both have a chance of finishing each other. That's what I mean by that. Not just, oh, both people are trained fighters. Trained fighters have the opportunity, or they have the ability to finish other trained fighters. So, by definition, they'll always have the opportunity to finish another person. Of course, that always exists. But, again, I'm just fucking ranting now. Bit of a scatterbrain for this one. But, moving on. I'm actually going to say John Silva by decision. Spooky hours. I'm going to say that there's a war. Moving on, John Matsumoto. Fuck, bro. The more I think about that, the less confident I feel like it, but I'm still going to ride John Matsumoto by decision again. 2 decisions back to back. Then we got Anthony Hernandez by round 3 sub. Like I said, I'm confident in that round 3 sub. I do think this fight is going to be a little bit of a war, a bit of a slog maybe. Not in a boring sense, but just a grindy kind of fight. I actually think Anthony Hernandez should be winning the whole time relatively. Maybe not every single second, obviously, but win the rounds at least. Moving on. And to the final fight, Song Yadong. What do I say? Do I say round 3 KO, TKO? Honestly, fuck it. Why not? Why not? Song Yadong by round 3 KO, TKO. You heard it here. I think that's pretty much it. I'm going to let you go super quick. I'm actually going to dip the fuck out of here. There's a couple last things I have to finish up right after the recording of this video. I almost said I love you. I'll see you soon. I do love you, and I will see you soon. I dropped the camera as I was trying to do the outro again, but like I said, like the video if you like the video, dislike the video if you dislike the video. Leave a comment below. Let me know your thoughts on the fight, on the video, whether you liked it, whether you disliked it, whether you're going to like these fights, dislike the fights preemptively, after the fact. Hop into the Smoky Hours live stream. We're actually going to be the Sober Hours. Sober Hours. First Sober Hours. Have you ever done a sober stream, brother? Well, I will. Later today. In a few hours, actually. UFC Seattle. Shit's going to be hyped. Be there or be square in the UFC Sober Hours. First Sober Hours live stream. Thanks for watching again. Subscribe to see more content. More content on the way, motherfuckers. I know I say that every time, but I'm coming. I'm coming for you guys. All right. Much love. Big kiss.